Hey guys, so I want to make this little video because I have what I feel, and I'll say as humbly as I can, I feel might be a little bit of wisdom that I can impart upon the world after my years living in service and in complete dependence on God. Now arguably we're all completely dependent on God, but let's say that I have to pray a little more often because everything, food, medical care, housing, everything that I've got to provide for these 105 children God has placed in my guardianship has all came from prayer and social media. Now, what I want to do here is separate prayer from social media for a second, because every time I ask for assistance, every time I pray first, and if I feel inclined to make a video, then I'll know that that is God and what he wants me to do. If I don't, I'll know he'll answer us another way. Now, the other day my staff and I needed an amount of money for a tumble dryer, and I said we can't afford that and we need it. It's rainy season, we've got so many kids, we just can't get the clothes dry. That can lead to them getting sick as well, so it's a huge problem. So I prayed to God about it, and so did my team. The next day, a sum of money was donated, which was literally exactly the amount in dollars that we needed to buy this tumble dryer that Tom had been and looked at and was like 1.3 million Tanzanian shillings. I hadn't told anyone or anything, and it was an obscure number. It wasn't like a round number, it was an obscure number. And we got it, and the staff said, God always provides for us. And I do good at forgetting that, you see. I still get in a fluster and think, where am I going to get the money for this, for the kids? And God's got infinite resources because he's got billions of people on the planet he can tap into and send to us. Well, he hasn't got as many as he needs because most don't let their minds get silent enough and their hearts loud enough for him to guide them. But he can use a lot of people. So that's prayer. That's not fundraising, that's prayer. Now, when I pray like that, God doesn't send just Christians, nor does he send just Muslims or Buddhists or persons of the Vedic faiths, Hinduism and Sikh and Jain. He doesn't send shamans and pagans. He sends all of them. All of those people have answered prayers in my life. All of those faiths, all of those beliefs. God has used each and every one to answer prayers for our children's needs that we have said, that my staff have said, my staff being predominantly Christian and praying to Jesus, some Muslim praying to Allah, but ultimately God has always used all faiths to answer our needs. So when you see that, like I have in my life, and it happens in ways like that you can't deny it's God answering the prayer, what choice are you left with? Other than to say, it's the same God. If someone cannot grasp this, then you need to understand this. The best way I found in Christianity I'm most familiar with, the Christian text tells you that the carnal mind is not subject to the laws of God. Now, what that means is that your thoughts are not subject to the laws of God. They're just not. So, where we have our identification and religions, which are useful and necessary and we need them, is inside our thoughts. Imagery, ideas, traditions, all of these things are of the carnal mind. So what I can see is these people that God sends to answer our prayers, they don't get caught up in the carnal mind too much. And instead what God is doing, he's seeing the energy of the person collectively. Because the carnal mind is a linear processing system. It's very weak at understanding truth. It's very weak at even discerning that ahead of us. That's half of humanity's problem, is we try to process this completely non-linear experience with a linear processing system, and then we accidentally identify with the linear processing system. But God is not there. We know that from every single religion on the planet. God's not inside the minds of people. It is where you see these religious fanatics coming from their mind that we understand this for certain. The will of God is not to kill each other in the name of him. The will of God is not to spread hatred to one another in the name of the Prince of Peace, which many people do. The aim of God is to create a loving species who serve one another and walk in humility and understand the profound gift that this life is. That comes from an energetic place, and that energy is heard in the heavens. That is how it works. It's heard in the heavens. So when God hears us, multi-faith here in Tanzania, praying and saying, help us, we need help with this, he doesn't look down and say, what are those people thinking? What are they thinking? He scans them and he listens. He says, hey, angels, look, listen, Chair Tanzania are praying, go, help them. And as the angels come down under God's instruction, they look for the people with the open heart and the silent mind, where they can go into them and, using the whispers of God, guide them. Either whisper a message to them, guide them to our website, implant a concept inside them that they should share some money with that guy they just saw on YouTube, and bang, even the correct amount sometimes goes into their pineal gland via the angles of light, which carry photons, or the angels, which are the messengers of light, and they answer the prayers that we need, and they answer our needs and the needs of the children when they do. Those angels and God do not look at the thoughts of the person. They look at the nature of the person. And it's when we're too caught in the carnal mind that you can't discern God's will. And the problem you have is, predominantly, I see it in the West where I'm from, but you've probably got the same problem in other cultures where I've not lived, is, for example, where people think that it's okay to say Jesus is Lord, and thus, because I professed it with my mouth, because I said it with my lips, I'm saved. But I can still go home and be a gluttonous eater of meat and an alcoholic, and I might beat my kids and my wife, and I might be sexually immoral, and I might have a head full of sinful thoughts and use pornography and all of this stuff. But you profess Jesus as the Lord. Of course, it doesn't matter one iota that you've professed with your mouth, because with your whole collective being, you haven't professed. And thus you're not saved. You're not okay. Because to profess someone as Christ as the Saviour, you have to embrace the Christ in all of your being, in all of your actions, not with a tiny, tiny 10% of your anatomical functioning within inside this present reality. And of course, 10% is tithing in Christianity. Surrender your 10%. You've got to get rid of your carnal mind and then profess with your whole being that Christ is the Saviour. Now, the problem with all faiths who get caught in the carnal mind is they can't see this. And all faiths have this problem. All. Absolutely all. But for someone like me who's walked in service, let my message to the world be this. If you honestly think, sorry, I got caught watching something that gone bad. If you honestly think that there is different gods, there's not. There is simply the godless and those who have God. And there are those kind of in between people who think they've got God, and for sure God's waiting for them, as he is everybody. He's waiting to embrace his children back into their care, if that is the path they wish to take. But they don't quite manage to reach God because they don't get out of their carnal mind. Because they don't enter that place I call the field, and to stumble back onto Rumi's perfect quote on this, out beyond our thoughts, our opinions of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field and I'll meet you there. And these people who God uses to answer our prayers, they connect to the field. They do it by taking no thought, which is instructed by all, absolutely all, faiths on the planet. They do it by being in prayer, having humility, and thus they raise their energy up. And from all beliefs, all walks of life, they come and they help our children and myself to help to carry on doing what God has tasked me with here in Tanzania. And so I'm left after all these years with one option, that it's important we have our religions, and important we have our ways of dealing with the carnal mind and accessing God, because it is part of us. But when all is said and done, despite your culture, despite all of this, the God of Jesus Christ, that is a loving, nurturing Father, Mother, Creator to all, also accepts the same loving vibration from those who have other faiths. And if I were a Hindu, I might be saying that the loving Father Creator, the Brahman of Krishna, accepts other faiths. And I can't help but do that, because in my experience, when we pray, God sends all faiths to help us. Always has and always does. And thus, I can't help but say that it's really quite irrelevant what we're thinking about God. What matters is what we're feeling about God, because that is what God hears. He sees the energy and hears the energy of the person, their heart. He doesn't hear the chatter of the mind. And thus he doesn't care if he uses a Muslim to answer a Christian prayer, or he uses a Sikh to answer a Muslim prayer. That's not important to God. The noise we make inside the carnal mind, which is not subject to his laws, it's not relevant to him. What's relevant to God is the nature of the person. And that is what Share Tanzania shows, is that all faiths have shared in the betterment of thousands of children these last 5 years. And long may it continue to be that way, because any unity we can find on planet Earth, be they between religions or faiths or cultures, are very much important and very much needed, because it would seem that division is at the forefront of the minds of the elite. And if you're ever in any doubt, I often find that you just go with the opposite of what the elite are doing. Seems they worship Satan and such. So I would say that the God that I pray to uses all faiths to answer us, and thus perhaps God doesn't really care what we call God, and thus our carnal mind deciphers them as different gods. He just sits and chuckles and says, yeah, but as long as you're loving, you're going to reach me, because there's only one original God. There's only one truth. Many opinions and one truth. So, in the end, as long as we're loving and good, then we all have God. And it's the same God. Otherwise, how does he use all them people who are using different means and different words to pray to God to answer our prayers and needs? Everything. I've got the greatest help I've had. Hindu, Christian, Muslim, shaman, everything is part of the framework of Tanzania, and all I've ever done is prayed, and God sent them to us. So, right, I'm going to get off because there's a rainstorm coming down this valley, and I don't have a coat. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as it really helps us to grow the channel, and with it help more children here in Tanzania. Also, don't forget you can support our work by sharing with children in crisis here. Be it sharing for a particular need, or even sharing one-on-one support for education, housing, food and medical care. It can be done for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee a week back in the West after all. Just visit www.sharetanzania.co.uk to find out more. Lastly, remember you can also support us via Patreon, www.patreon.com/featherstail, and help keep us here in Tanzania to continue our work. The links for the website and for the Patreon are in the description box of this video. Love and light, guys. See you soon.